When we think of Mecca today, we think of it as the heart of Islam. But long before that, it was a bustling hub of commerce, culture, and, well, gods. A lot of them. Today, we're going to journey back in time to explore the really vibrant and complex spiritual world of the Quraysh tribe. They were the powerful custodians of Mecca right before a single revolutionary message came and changed everything. So let's go back and meet the old gods of Mecca. So let's just start with the big question right up front. If you were, say, a trader walking into Mecca around the year 600, who would you see people praying to? It's kind of easy to imagine it was just an empty slate, right? A spiritual desert just waiting for a new idea. But the reality? Oh, it was far more crowded, way more complex, and honestly, it's absolutely fascinating. The answer, in part, comes down to this number, 360. Just let that sink in. That's how many idols were supposedly housed in and around Mecca's main shrine, the Kaaba. Some historians even say it was one for every day of the year. So this was no spiritual vacuum. This was a pantheon. It was like a bustling marketplace of deities, and each one had a specific job, a unique group of followers, and a really important role in the city's whole economy. And, in any big organization, there's always a boss, right? A figure at the top. For the Quraysh in Mecca, the chief executive in this, let's call it a divine boardroom, the one sitting in the most prestigious spot, was a god named Hubal. He was the principal idol placed right inside the most secret space in all of Arabia. So what was Hubal's job description? Well, his divine portfolio was crucial for anyone trying to survive in the desert. He was the god you'd pray to for rain, which, of course, was a matter of life and death. But his other job was maybe even more important. He was the god of divination. He was the one who held the answers to the future, the one you went to when a decision was just too big for you to make on your own. And Hubble wasn't just some abstract idea. No, he was a physical presence. Imagine this, a commanding statue of a man carved from this precious red agate. And get this, at some point its right hand broke off, so they replaced it with one made of solid gold. That's how important he was. He might have even been an import, maybe from Syria, which really shows you how Mecca was a crossroads of culture. Tribal leaders would stand before him and use these special featherless arrows to get a yes or no on huge decisions. Should we go to war? Is this a good time for our caravan to leave? To be the one in charge of Hubble meant you controlled the divine seal of approval in Mecca, and that cemented the Quraysh's power. But Hubal wasn't the only major player at the top. Alongside him, and in some places even more revered than him, was this trio of incredibly powerful goddesses. In the tradition of the time, they were often called the daughters of Allah, and believe me, their influence went far, far beyond Mecca. So let's meet them. First up, we have Allat. Her name is possibly the feminine version of the name Allah itself, and she was a major goddess who kind of handled two sides of the same coin. On one hand, she was all about the creative force of fertility and motherhood, but on the other, she was this fierce, protective warrior goddess. Her main shrine was this amazing sanctuary of white stone in the nearby city of Taif, but her power was known and respected all across Arabia. Next is Al-Uzza, a name that means the most mighty, and she really lived up to it. She was the official patroness of the Quraysh tribe, their symbol of just raw power and protection. She was fierce, and she demanded respect. When the Quraysh were marching into a battle, it was her name they were shouting for victory. You did not want to get on her bad side. And finally, we have Manat. She was probably the oldest, the most ancient of the three, and her domain was maybe the most profound and feared of all. Fate, time, and ultimately death. Her name is tied to destiny, to that inescapable portion that's handed out to every single person. There was this real sense of gravity and fatalism around her, a theme you see all over the epic poetry of ancient Arabia. So this table kind of maps out the whole spiritual ecosystem for us. Right there in the political center, inside the Kaaba in Mecca, you've got Hubal, the top idol of the ruling tribe. But look how the other centers of power spread out from there. Over to the east in Taif, you have the big shrine for Allat. To the west, on the coast, the ancient shrine for Manat, watching over the trade routes. And right outside Mecca, you've got the sacred grove for the tribe's own patroness, Al-Uzza. See, it wasn't just a random list of gods. It was a really complex, interconnected network of belief, pilgrimage, and power that defined the whole region. Okay, now this is where the story takes a turn that might actually surprise you. Because above Hubal, above the powerful goddesses, above all 360 of those idols, The people of Mecca already acknowledged a higher single power, a supreme creator, a high god who was above all the other gods. I mean, really think about that for a second. With all these specific gods you can pray to for specific things, rain from Hubal, victory from Al-Uzza, who do they think was the architect of the whole universe? Who was the prime mover behind everything? The name they used was Allah. Yes, that exact same name. And understanding this one fact is probably the most crucial piece of the puzzle if you want to grasp the world that Islam was born into. So here's the crucial point. The idea of Allah wasn't new. He was already there, right at the very top of the pyramid. He was seen as the creator of the heavens and the earth. However, and this is a huge however, he was seen as remote, transcendent, too high up to be bothered with the day-to-day problems of people. You wouldn't pray directly to him for a good harvest. For that, you needed help. You needed intermediary. And we actually know their exact reasoning because a version of their argument is right there in the Quran itself. They'd say, we only worship them that they may bring us nearer to Allah. This single idea explains the entire system. All 360 idols, Habal, Alat, Al-Uzza, Manat, they weren't rivals to Allah. In their minds, they were like divine lobbyists. They were powerful spiritual patrons who could take your prayers and carry them up to the supreme, distant creator. So let's just pull back and look at the big picture for a second. What we have here is a society with a really deeply embedded religious structure. Its economy is literally fueled by pilgrimage to all these different gods, and its complex understanding of the divine is just teetering right on the edge of a massive, system-shattering change. This was the hierarchy. This was the established order. At the very top, you have the supreme creator, Allah, who is acknowledged but seen as distant. In the middle, you have this whole pantheon of accessible gods and goddesses who acts as the go-betweens. And down at the bottom, you have the human custodians, the Quraysh tribe, who control access to the idols, manage the whole show, and get a ton of political and economic power from being the gatekeepers. And that leaves us with the ultimate question, doesn't it? If the people of Mecca already believed in a supreme God named Allah, what was so radical, so dangerous about the message of Islam? The revolution wasn't about announcing God, it was about firing all the middlemen. So what happens when that entire system gets challenged? What happens when one voice dares to stand up to 360? Well, that's the question we're going to explore next time.